So if there are some questions we can't get around to, we'll make sure to add the answers on that webpage. That way we can go back and share all the fun stuff from today. Now, if you've been paying attention to Build today, you've probably heard some really cool announcements around Xamarin, and wanted to share a couple with you before we dove into the questions first. And the big announcement of the day is Maui. So what is Maui? Well, think of it as the evolution of Xamarin Forms. Now, today, if we want to build a cross-platform mobile app, obviously we do that in Xamarin Forms. We download the NuGet package, and the Xamarin Forms NuGet package runs on top of Xamarin. Well, in the future, specifically in .NET 6, we will debut Maui, which will actually be baked into .NET. So instead of having to add a NuGet package, we will have a new namespace called system.maui. And likewise with Xamarin Essentials, that will become system.devices. So lots of crazy new news that's going to be super exciting, because then we'll also have essentially a cross-platform UI for all of .NET. And what that will look like if you want to do a new Maui app, we'll go to File New and choose Multi-Platform App UI, because that's actually what Maui stands for. Fun fact. I just learned that recently myself. I just thought it was a cool name, but Multi-Platform App UI, Maui. Or we'll even be able to do it from CLI. So for anybody that loves using the terminal commands, we'll be able to say .NET New Maui as well.
Ooh, paused. We're back.
And likewise, we're going to we'll be bringing all this in for iOS and Android. So think of Maui as a way to build a cross-platform UI. We have this cool new project layout. Let's see. Get all the images on the screen there. So instead of having multiple projects, instead of having our iOS project, our Android project, and our .NET Standard project like we have today, we'll just have one Maui project, inside of which we can reference all the different platforms. We'll be able to include resources, so things like adding images and scaling them, right? Like 1x, 2x, 3x in iOS, or HTTPI, XHTTPI, XXXHTTPI on Android. We can now share those resources more easily. Maui will help us take care of that. And it's leveraging a lot of things around multi-platform, multi-targeting to be able to do this. And of course, if we do want to do anything platform specific, we still have there we'll be able to dive into the platform specific code, like we see here in this example around the Bluetooth adapter. All right, so with that being said, let me give way and let's chat. Let's answer some of these questions, and I'll cue in all my friends here. So let's see, Maddie, what do we have queued up for the questions?
Oh my gosh, we have so many. I'm just trying to like watch the chat as it flies by, and I'm super excited. One of the ones that I will push right now is actually there's a whole lot I've seen coming in about what the roadmap is for new features with Xamarin Forms until Maui comes out, and how Xamarin Forms is affected by Maui. Is it an evolution? Is it a replacement? What's going on here? David, I think you're probably the right one to answer this question, right?
I would imagine that I probably am. I'm going to go ahead and open up my desktop here. And let's go to the browser, because I just updated the roadmap. So if we go to aka.ms/xf-roadmap, this is on our GitHub. You can just go to our GitHub for Xamarin Forms. And let me bump this up a little bit. Woohoo, that got big. And I understand there's a little bit of echo, maybe some audio issues. We do apologize for that. We are doing too many cool things at once, I imagine. But hopefully you can understand me and this is coming through okay. I'm going to continue tweaking things as we go here to try to improve things. Thank you, Jacob, for Twitter messaging me. Keep it going. All right, so what is the roadmap for Xamarin Forms? Well, we're going to continue shipping Xamarin Forms all the way through November 2021. So all the way through Maui going GA. And you can really think of Maui as being the evolution of Xamarin Forms. It's the next version, but it's going to be substantial in that it will run now on .NET 6. And it will take new project system things, and we're also going to do some kind of architectural plumbing to address some significant things that we've wanted to address for a long time, but didn't want to necessarily take on the ramifications. And now is the time to do that with Maui. But in Xamarin Forms, we're going to continue pushing what we know we've learned from you, from your feedback, what is the most important stuff. And so among those things is gradient brush, paths and shapes. So doing primitive drawing, but using the native graphics libraries of each individual platform. So this is different than Skia Sharp, but accomplishes much of the same stuff. And there's no added, megabytes to your APKs and your IPAs. And then in August, we want to introduce Tab View and App Bar. If you want to know more about what these look like and what they are, we have specs here. You can go read those. Maddie and I also cover these in our on-demand session for Xamarin Forms, and you can get kind of a sneak peek of what they look like. We actually, in addition to having specs for these, we actually have a lot of the implementation already done. So these things are like on the doorstep, ready to go out and be useful. And we've heard significant feedback really over the years that tabs and app bars, or the nav bar at the top, are among the more complicated things to handle. So we're excited to be able to do that in a fully cross-platform way that doesn't bear all the burden and the complexities of the native platforms and unifying those different platforms. So it's an alternative to using what you use now. It's not necessarily going to deprecate anything, but you would be able to choose which path is best for you based on the needs of your application. And then coming in August, September, in September, we are going to launch Xamarin Forms 5, which will be the last major version of the Xamarin Forms series. And it will bring all those things that I just mentioned to a stable release from the preview. We are also working feverishly to finish out all the other stuff that is currently in preview, at least the things that make the most sense to get to where they need to be from the experimental flag. So Xamarin Forms 5 will become a long-term stable release. And then from September of this year all the way through September, November of 2021, it's going to be focusing more and more on improving the base, improving the quality of that, and then starting that migration to Maui. Some work over the summer and into the fall will include Maui and setting the stage and preparing for that. But the transition, the crossover, will kind of be a smooth blended transition where the investment in the Xamarin Forms repository will start to go down, and while we're ramping up on Maui, which is kind of, you can think of it, they're almost branches, maybe a little, they're different repositories. I understand that it makes it look like a bigger separation, but in many ways, we're going to try to make this as smooth as possible. Was that a long enough answer? We're half over.
I'm sorry in advance. I know there's an echo when I talk. David, you have to mute yourself somewhere, or you have to mute your stream somewhere, because I think what's happening is the guests are echoing.
I wonder if you're coming through two places.
Now I'm afraid to talk. Do I echo too?
Everyone but David. Sorry.
Interesting. All right.
Next question now. Still echo? Still echo? Tell us in the chat.
What's up, Dave? Answer all the questions. I see one here. It's got 19 likes. David, I'm curious about the upgrade path for existing apps, hoping it's an easy migration from Xamarin Forms to Maui. What do you think?
Yeah, so there are some aspects of the migration that will take effort, no doubt about it, but we think it's going to be pretty smooth, and here's why. So the main parts of the migration—
Is David talking without us?
You can't hear me.
I don't hear him.
You asked me to mute myself somewhere, so I muted myself in Skype so that everybody else could hear me. All right, I'm going to leave it open because you said that my mic is actually fine. All right, so what I was saying is that the project system is going to change, as well as the build tools and the runtime as part of .NET 6. So those things are kind of a separate bucket of changes that will happen no matter what. Like if Xamarin Forms was just going to continue on, those things were going to happen. And so there is a CS Proj migration that needs to happen. As well as the build tools will change, as I mentioned. But you're also going to gain CLI support and some of those wonderful things that will make CI easier. It'll make those of you who enjoy using CLI as the way to run your apps and build and clean and all that jazz. It certainly opens up the door for some very nice future things that we could do with VS Code as well. And we demo some of those visionary things in a couple of the sessions. Scott Hunter showed that. So then some of the other transitional things that'll need to happen, a quick find and replace to change the Xamarin Forms namespace references to system.maui. Xamarin Essentials is transitioning to system.devices. And some of those things are still a bit up in the air in terms of like we're doing API review with the .NET team. And that's one of the reasons we're super excited for today is because now we can do these things in the open. Which we have been essentially waiting for in many cases because we don't want, we're open source projects. We don't want to be making decisions behind closed doors. We want to have these conversations with you. So there are all those pieces that are involved in the migration, but your code as it exists should work. You take care of those migration tasks, which hopefully is not a lot of work. And if we can provide some conversion tools for you, we certainly will. We need to make sure we have the commitment to build that and to adapt it for this need. And I guess the other thing is, third-party libraries, as part of .NET 6 and .NET 5 for that matter, they're going to need to be updated and rebuilt to target the new target framework runtimes, the target framework monikers. That's going to be important. And then, of course, if they are controls depending on Xamarin Forms types, they'll need to update to reflect the MAUI types as well. Your custom renderers are another thing that we are looking at. We think we can do all the renderer work that we want to do in MAUI without breaking your renderers, either by providing a shim or just the way in which it's implemented. But we are going to do some pretty radical things in the renderers to improve performance, especially just the sheer weight of things, but also to light up some other experiences like the model view update aspect of things or future potential Blazor experiences to make this integrated really well. Because, of course, it was originally built around the idea of data binding, two-way data binding, a lot of notifications flying around, hopefully not more than needs to be, but, MVU doesn't necessarily need that. Blazor doesn't necessarily need that. So all said, my hope is it's a really smooth, easy transition. We're certainly going to do our best to make that the case. But, I think on the FAQ on the MAUI website, which let me flip over there if y'all don't mind. Oh, Scott Hansen was just calling me. Uh-oh. What did I do?
You have echo.
I have echo?
No, that's what Hansen.
That's what Hansen was going to say. So if we come down here and let's open up .NET MAUI. Oh, it's not... prefer the shortcuts to make it nice and easy. Come on, GitHub. There we go. So in the wiki, I have an FAQ here. That talks about all these sorts of things and what our transition plans are and things like that. So, man, Scott Hanselman calling me kind of took me off the beaten path. What's the next question? I'll answer this.
He's been calling you since the keynote.
So David, there's a couple. There were a couple of questions on what flavor of XAML MAUI is going to use.
Yeah.
So you have any insight?
So, I mean, at this point, nothing is changing in terms of the XAML implementation. And this is something that we talk to customers about all the time. We have done several rounds of interviews with customers and with MVPs leading up to this. We've done focus groups. And I'm always asking, and will continue to ask, hey, is there value to you in adapting or unifying with another platform's existing XAML or coming to an agreement on a XAML? Like what's the goal? What's the hope? I know that it's a passionate thing for a lot of people, and so I have a lot of sympathy for that. But really the vast majority nearly unanimous, but the vast majority say, look, if you're going to unify on a naming scheme and on an implementation, do one that doesn't adhere to one specific platform. You're a cross-platform framework. You do Android, iOS, Mac OS, Windows. We have backends for Linux. We've got both UWP and WPF. The future of web is out there as a potential. And so when you look across all those platforms and the names that they have in common and the names that they don't have in common, the perspective starts to change. And the larger voice from our customers says, look, pick a name and stick with it. There's really not a ton of value to us. Yeah, we might gain some benefit in transitioning some skill sets, but yeah, so we continue to ask the question to make sure we're not misreading the feedback that we're hearing, but that's where we stand today. So the XAML that we will have in Maui is the XAML you have in Xamarin Forms. We'll continue to improve it and to iterate on it and to add, we just added a nice markup extension that will be coming out, I think, in 4.7 that makes adding grid rows and column definitions much easier. And that's something that is it's new to Xamarin Forms. I don't believe it's supported anywhere else. I think the Uno platform might support something that's similar, but that's kind of where we stand on that. And it's not a stance that we take on our own. It's driven by tons of customer feedback. Like I said, focus groups and research and surveys and yeah.
David, do you still have some Maui code up? We have a question about breaking into the native platform APIs.
Okay. So I don't think that in my demo here, though, that I'm doing that. Everything here is in the cross-platform layer. I can speak to it a little bit, and actually, why don't I go up here to the repository and go to the issue that we have on the renderer, Slim Renderer architecture, because this here explains more of the thinking we have right now in terms of refactoring our renderers and how we can dig down into the platform and access it much more easily. So if you come look here, and really this is probably a good topic to come join Shane Newville and myself tomorrow afternoon, actually tomorrow evening, our time. We're going to be doing a live Twitch stream on the Microsoft developer account. And we can go much more in depth in terms of what the property mapper, which is what I have up on screen here, how this works as compared to creating effects or custom renders. It's much more lightweight. It is more performant. And so it's also just a very easy way for you to get into code. I guess the other aspect of the getting to the native layer as part of Maui is the single project. So I don't really have a slide for that, and I don't have that demo on this machine. But the single project will use multi-targeting and some other work that we'll do in the project system to bring all that up into one project. So when you're in that scenario, you can more easily side by side have a custom piece of code for iOS, custom piece of code for Android, custom piece for Windows and Mac OS, all side by side in a platforms folder. Or if the platform folder, because we're getting feedback on that still as to what's most useful. If that doesn't make sense for your project and your team, then you can use the multi-targeting really anywhere. The convention is yet to be established, I guess is what I'm saying. But that will give you the ease of doing that without having to go to a separate project and see a bunch of platform specific code that doesn't necessarily relate. So like if you just want to go do something to a UI label, you really only need to worry about the 2 or 3 lines of UI label code as opposed to creating a whole renderer and effect and routing things, and simplifying that whole experience is top of mind, and it's a big deal in Maui.
Yeah, one thing that if anybody else is new to multi-targeting, especially with Xamarin apps, multi-targeting gives us the ability to have one project that then can build and compile for a specific platform like iOS, Android, etc. And the code that really introduced me to multi-targeting was the Xamarin Essentials library. If you haven't checked it out, Xamarin Essentials is all open source. And I'd always heard about multi-targeting, and everybody that was using it was just talking about how great it was, and they loved it. I was like, I don't know, it still doesn't really click. And it wasn't until I dove into the Xamarin Essentials library and GitHub, I was like, oh, I get it now. This actually makes sense. So I highly recommend checking that out if anybody else is curious for diving into multi-targeting for the first time.
Totally agree.
David, there are quite a few questions about what desktop support is going to look like in Maui. What's the story there?
Yeah, so as we've mentioned, Mac OS and Windows, and I understand, I just heard that Scott Hunter during his live session about half an hour ago mentioned Linux on the roadmap for the future as a future thing, not something that we've planned for yet, but it's out there. And you know, we have the GDK2 backend today, so Linux is a great opportunity, and it's something that I know that even internally within the Xamarin team, there's lots of love for Linux, and some of our team, I think, works on Linux on a regular basis. So you know, that's exciting, and certainly something that we'll continue to evaluate and make sure that the investment is justified and the demand is there and all that sort of thing. So Mac OS, really, you kind of get the Mac OS bindings somewhat for free. Saying for free isn't really, it makes it sound like there's no effort. But as you're doing the iOS bindings, you kind of end up getting the Mac OS bindings that enable using .NET to target Mac OS. So what we're going to do, and I have this on the Maui roadmap, is as we get closer, we'll be working on improving the parity of the Mac OS backend as well as our Windows backend to match what our current support is for mobile, because you know, mobile has been where the vast majority of our usage has been to date. And so the Windows backend and the Mac OS backend haven't really gotten as much attention. Mac OS certainly not even really being official until now. So we will work on that. There's actually a whole, I guess I'll go back to my desktop again if you don't mind. You can't stop me. I have all the buttons over here anyway. That's not even fair, is it? Brandon, you put me in control of this situation. So here, where did we put that? Status, sorry, it's staring me in the face. So here on the status, you can see by component, and this is a very, look how long this wiki is. It's insanely long. But you can come down here and you can see, okay, on the progress bar, we've got it across all these platforms today on Xamarin Forms. What's the Maui implementation and where do we stand on porting it? And that porting really comes down to, as I mentioned, we're adapting to this slim renderer architecture, which has the most benefit really for Android, where performance is hard fought, hard won. Yeah, so I would follow along with this, and you'll kind of see the progress that we'll be making between now and September, November of next year. The order in which we do these things, I'm sure there'll be plenty of overlap, but yeah, I'm excited for it.
Right. We still have tons of Maui questions rolling in, so we'll keep the Maui wave going.
Oh wow! The gift keeps on giving.
He's been saving that all day.
I really have. Let's see. So a couple questions about the why with Maui. Why are we doing this? And in particular, what can we expect as far as performance improvements with Maui? Questions, especially with Android.
Great question. So the why is really coming down to the whole One.NET strategy is to bring everything together under .NET. So that there's really, in the conversation that you have with an employer, the conversation you have with your teammates, when you say .NET, everybody can have a better understanding of what you're talking about. You don't have to use all those modifiers to really clarify things. And when it comes to Xamarin, something that we have faced forever, and I've been with Microsoft now for 3 years, is what's the future of Xamarin? Like it's always been kind of like out there on the fringe in terms of Microsoft products. It was an acquisition. Those already run the concern of where's it going to go. Noli, what are you doing in the background, Noli? Dog caught my attention. So bringing it into .NET, giving it a name that is a .NET name, just adds a lot of weight and validity to it for a lot of people. And typically, like when I share roadmap information from the Xamarin perspective, we typically only speak in 6-month turns. And it's not because we don't know that we'll be around in 12, 24, 40, months and years, but that's kind of the cycle of mobile, right? Like things are turning over rapidly, and we're dealing not just with what Apple's doing, but we're also having to react and pay attention to what Google is doing. And of course, now we have the very exciting Surface device, the Duo. I'm very excited about that. Can't wait to get my grubby little hands on one of those. So, for me, it's very exciting to be able to stand here and say, look, here's a roadmap that stretches all the way to November 2021. Like, that's amazing. And to be able to say, look, it's getting baked into .NET. Look, the system, or the namespace, system.maui. Like, that's not going anywhere. That's like etching it in stone, man. It's no longer etched in jello. Like, that's awesome. And again, part of the One.NET story, the unification of the runtimes and the build tools and the experience that I, as a core developer doing, command line stuff or web stuff in VS Code, can start using all those same .NET New, .NET Run type experiences, and hopefully in the future be able to use VS Code. And it's just like it opens up that whole door of really consistent developer experiences that helps us bring in new developers, helps us modernize. So switching to the question about, hey, what kind of performance can we expect? We've been fighting hard over the past 2.5, 3 years at least. This is just my awareness because I've been part of the team since then, to win every millisecond we can, from startup time on Android to runtime performance, all the build time improvements, and they are very hard fought wins. I feel like that's a phrase I keep coming up with, in part because we have worked very, very hard to provide backwards compatibility and provide consistency. One of the feedback things I heard a lot when I first joined was, every update breaks me. My app breaks, and I have to go do this NuGet magic, and it's horrible. The phrase NuGet hell is like common in vernacular. Every VS breaks me, et cetera, et cetera. And so we invested a lot in making sure that you could trust your update experience. You could trust both your VS and your NuGet update experience when it came to Xamarin Apps, to provide you with consistent experiences. And what I have heard a lot of feedback really for the past 1.5 years is we've made significant strides in that area, to the point where folks are saying, hey, I just upgraded from 2.3 to 4.5 and I, had barely a problem, right? Or maybe just had to tweak one build setting because you actually transitioned from probably PCLs to .NET Standard libraries and all manner of other things. So, but in so doing that, we have held back from doing some breaking changes that we believe and we know would make a difference. So with Maui, with the Slim Renderer architecture in particular, we're going to reorganize, and really we're kind of flipping the way in which renderers are done. We're going to invert it. And so James Clancy is actually doing a live stream right after this. Actually, he just started, I believe.
Right now, yeah.
I just started. So leave me if you want, leave us if you want, but he will probably be talking about that because he's been instrumental in kind of prototyping that renderer architecture and seeing what wins and gains we can get there. But we are absolutely going to continue to fight for those wins, and we kind of have a bit of a mandate and a license now with Maui to do the best we can to overcome the things we've known we've had for a while, we've inherited, right? So, but having said that, we're going to do it all through the lens of customer value. So to you, is this valuable to you? We aren't going to break things if it's like huge cost to you and it doesn't win you more than 10 milliseconds, right? Like, that's ridiculous. We wouldn't do that. So we are being very careful to see this all through the lens of the developer and the customer, so that we can delight you with this. It's not just about saving us cycles.
Yeah, I know for me, and taking off my works at Microsoft, I just put on my Xamarin developer hat. Something that I'm looking forward to is that essentially first-class support that we'll be getting, because I love Xamarin Forms, and I always use a Mac for my development. So I'm always on Visual Studio for Mac using Xamarin, anytime I hear about a new feature, right? Like when C# 8 first was announced, I was excited. I'm chomping at the bit, but I had to wait for first Mono to catch up, so Mono to implement C# 8. Then I had to wait for Visual Studio for Mac to catch up to Visual Studio and implement those new features. And what Maui will do is streamline a lot of that. We'll basically get a lot of that for free instead of having to constantly play catch up. And that's something that I know I'm really looking forward to. So I want to pivot away from Maui just a little bit because Maddie got some questions about the hotness. So hot reload, hot restart, what's coming? What do we have today that maybe folks can try out or miss the announcement? And then what's coming in the future?
Yeah, what's great about what I showed with Scott Hanselman this morning is that both Hot Reload and Hot Restart are available in Visual Studio right now. So Hot Reload is debugging your app, making changes to your XAML, hitting save, and then seeing that change right away with your live data, which is really, really cool. And you can go to Tools, Options, Xamarin, Hot Reload in Windows, and Visual Studio Preferences, Hot Reload. I think. Tools for Xamarin and Hot Reload. We just moved it on Mac. So to turn it on and start using it right away. It'll work with any Xamarin Forms project that's above, I think Xamarin Forms 4.1 or 4.2, which is great. We also have a new mode coming out for that. That's going to be even faster than it already is. Pretty snappy. But with that new mode, you'll just reload what changed. And you'll be able to actually use like a live visual tree if you use one of those with Windows Hot Reload. So that will be pretty cool. Definitely stay tuned on the blog for that, on our Xamarin blog. And then with Hot Restart, really what Hot Restart is at its core is the idea that we don't have to rebuild every single part of your app when you make some changes, just like a C# change or a XAML change. With XAML you can Hot Reload, but in some cases you might be making changes to your code behind. And with Hot Restart, it really quickly just takes what changed and redeploys that onto your iPhone and Android now as well. But the cool thing about it with iPhone is that since it's just taking what changed, if you have your iPhone plugged into your PC, you don't actually need to go through the full rebuild. And if you have a paid Apple developer account, you can deploy your iOS app and start debugging it on your iPhone without a pair to Mac, which is something I know a lot of people use right now. So like I said, you need the paid Apple developer account, and you always will need a Mac to distribute your application. But for just debugging, if you want to get started with your iPhone and your laptop or your PC, plug it right in over USB and you're good to go. And also, I know I've been getting some Twitter DMs about what's going on with the Q&A. We have thousands of questions rolling through. So we are trying to get to as many as we can. I just want you to know we're trying to read and respond as quickly as possible. But always feel free to tweet us afterwards, email us, find us on GitHub, and we'll respond as much as we can.
Yeah, join us on the Twitch streams as well. Oh, I think I just fixed the audio problem.
Oh, nice.
Well, they couldn't hear you probably because I had you muted.
Story of my life. So let's talk a little bit about Blazor. So seeing some questions coming in around Blazor and Wasm. Who wants to talk to we'll say the future of Blazor, maybe the future of Blazor and Maui? Or just what is Blazor?
Sure. Matt, do you want to talk to this, or I can answer it? I want to give Matt a chance to speak if he wants to.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Blazor. No. So one of the questions I did see coming up, David, is that you might be able to talk to this. Is that are there going to be any Blazor bindings with Maui? So, but Brandon, the question that you asked though was, what's the future of Blazor? Like with the Blazor Wasm and the current Blazor, and Blazor Wasm is going to be out. Is that in the preview version of Visual Studio right now, I believe, or it's coming up? And so right now, Blazor and Forms are separate, and so there's that. But what's going on with Blazor and Blazor bindings for Forms? And that's something I actually don't know anything about. So
sure. I can answer that. So we're continuing to iterate on Blazor mobile bindings or mobile bindings for Blazor, or however you want to throw those three words together. In any combination, we'll know what you're talking about. And so we actually have an update coming out this week. It is an experiment. to kind of, and a lot of the learnings from that experiment are what are informing the renderer things we're doing in Maui. So we'll continue to iterate on that. We're working closely with the Blazor team to kind of investigate other really cool things. And I've seen some internal demos. I'm sure in coming weeks and months, we'll start sharing those things more widely to get feedback on them. Very exciting opportunities to blend both of these technologies together, which again, one.net. Sorry, somebody just said echo off in the chat. So it's one.net. It's you're a .NET developer and you can blend these things together within your team, within your projects as you need to, and make really cool experiences. So we'll continue iterating on it and doing customer development and focus groups and lab studies like we've been doing, and we'll kind of see where things go from there. So no formal plans to share at this time, other than we're very excited about it. It seems like there's a really excellent opportunity to marry these technologies together for specific opportunities that really benefit from it.
Love it. So sticking with the theme of what's out today with Xamarin Forms, we have Xamarin Forms 4.6 has recently been promoted to stable, and 4.7 is now available as preview. So why don't we go around the room, and Matt, let's start with you. Favorite new feature in either Xamarin Forms 4.6 or 4.7 preview?
All right. How about I'll go back to 4.5 and say the .back button, or not the back in shell, the .back navigation stack going back. Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know if I explained it correctly, but
explain it for everybody.
Yeah. All right. So if you're doing routing with shell, navigation routing, and you say, all right, you can get to a page multiple different ways, and you're not exactly sure on that page how you got there, because you can get to it multiple different ways. You can just do route back dot, and that dot, or actually dot will bring you back to wherever you got from. And that's super cool because you don't know how you got there, but dot will bring you back because the runtime knows. So yeah, that is my favorite feature that's out there right now.
Yeah. What the dot actually does is it strips the last segment off the URI. And you can actually, along with it, pass query string parameters back to where you're going. So if you're doing a modal navigation and then popping back to where you were, and you want to pass back the results of whatever the person chose, that's a great way to do that. So
very cool. So what about for somebody like me? And I'll be honest, I'll open up. I'm an old crunchy Xamarin Forms developer, and I still haven't gotten really into shell. So a lot of my existing apps are still, we'll say, made the old-fashioned way. Can I still use this?
No. So because you're not using shell as the context for your application, it has no awareness of that navigation context. So you're still going to be using your push and pop navigation service. Sorry, but feel free to learn.
No.
Feel free to learn something new.
It's on the list, along with all these other fun things. Awesome answer, Matt. Awesome. So, Matt, we'll send it over to you, and now we can include Xamarin Forms 4.5. So 4.5, 4.6, or 4.7. Favorite new feature?
There's too many.
Just go read the blog post.
I don't know. I've been kind of begging for gradients since last summer when it lost in the Xamarin Developer Summit voting challenge. Gradients was not the #1 most requested feature, and I really want them. I think gradients are great. So that's really what I'm looking forward to with Xamarin. But there's so much. There's so much. There's too much coming. I know there's a lot of questions in chat right now that are like, should I still do Xamarin Forms? Should I wait for Maui? Yes, do Xamarin Forms. We are still supporting it and innovating it and innovating on it and improving it and adding new features, tooling and SDK through the next 18 months until .NET 6, until Maui. And the migration experience for Maui, we have a long time to figure it out, but the plan is going to be that it's as seamless as possible. We hope that most Xamarin Forms apps will not require a lot of work to migrate to Maui and .NET 6. So your skills will be reused, especially if you're doing XAML and MVVM in Xamarin Forms now. Those things are all going to be there all going to be supported at Maui. So feel free to start your Xamarin apps. It's really, you can look at it as a evolution of Xamarin Forms. I know David has used that phrase a lot. But another way to think about it is that it's a name change that's increasing our scope. So yes, some namespaces are going to change. Yes, the name is going to change to Maui, or to multi-platform app UI. But the actual project is going to be nearly identical, minus some cool new features that'll actually make it easier. So, and it's going to support even more stuff than it does now. So sounds like a win-win to me.
Love it. Well, Dave, I'm just going to steal the screen real quick because I want to show off my new favorite feature, which really all that line of question was just a way for me to talk about C# for markup. And so what we're looking at here, this is just a simple, very simple app, because what do we do when there's a new feature? Well, we make an app with a button that increments a counter. So I have that here just to show off what C# markup looks like. This was introduced in Xamarin Forms 4.6. So if, like me, you love using C# for your Xamarin Forms UIs, C# markup might change your life. And let's see, maybe it's a little bit bigger here. So the app we have here is just using a grid for its content. And some of the new features that we have in the C# markup library, you can see we have the using statements here at the top, is now we can define our grids and rows, and we can do this all in line. So for my grid, I wanted to create a 4x4 grid. We have two rows, the counter row and the button row. And then we have two columns, one for the label, which says tap count, and the other for the value, which right now is 3. Now it's 4. And then when we add our UI elements into the grid, we can just do it right in line. We can say new label that says text count. And I can even say .text end, which is the equivalent of saying horizontal text alignment equals end. So saved, what was that? 5 seconds of typing, which is amazing, and it's fluent. And then once we have that, we can add it to the row and the column we want. So one of the things I love about this the most is I can now really easily see my code and visualize it in my head. So I can see that the grid has 2 rows, 2 columns, and I know that this label is in a specific row, a counter row, and it's in a specific column for label. The other thing I love is with bindings, look how easy it is to make a converter now. So if I want to, and I'm converting the view model taps count. If we jump to the view model, this is actually an integer value. Well, for my label, I want to display a string. So all I had to do was say inline convert that int value to a string using toString. And then the coolest part is here in .bind, we've also added in the ability to make everything type safe. So no longer do we have to have a iConverter in a different file and a different class. And then if you've ever used converters, you know that everything comes in as objects. We have to cast everything, and we have to add a lot of extra code around that to make sure everything's safe. Well, now it is safe. It's all type safe. We can do it right here, and it's all in line. So I don't have to create another separate file to do a converter or do anything fancy in my view model. So highly, highly recommend this. Anybody is also using C# for their Xamarin Forms UIs as well. All right, so did want to jump in before you, David, but favorite new feature?
Yeah, all of them.
It's like a parent saying, who's your favorite kid, right, David?
Yeah, Matt just said it's like a parent asking who's your favorite kid. I don't think I unmuted you quickly enough. Sorry, Matt. No, for me, it's really about what helps customers, alleviate their pain, open up new opportunities. And we're not putting stuff into the product that doesn't meet the criteria of hitting those on at least some level, right? We're not just dreaming up things in a back room and shipping them. So I'm always deeply gratified when we're able to get contributor stuff into the product and ship that, because we know that they want it, they wrote it. And then also for us, it's, meeting customer needs, meeting developer needs, the things that really excite developers. So I love the C# for markup, because you can see just on the pull requests and in the community how much that really gratified them, and people love it and they're loving using it. That takes nothing away from how awesome XAML is and those who enjoy using that and feel productive with that, and building that kind of collaborative ecosystem where we all support each other and we're trying to, listen first instead of just jumping all over stuff, and grow the community together and grow the product together. Those are the things that I enjoy the most about doing this whole job.
It's a pretty interesting question, and I'm going to put David and Matt on the spot a little bit, because I know you've done some consulting in your informal lives. But Cliff is asking about the Xamarin job market. So what does the world look like for Xamarin developers? How are we seeing the use of Xamarin grow, its adoption in the enterprise, and what advice can we give to folks like yourself, who maybe are current, future, aspiring consultants that want to dive headfirst into Xamarin and mobile?
Go ahead, Matt.
All right. As far as what the job market looks like, I guess that's going to vary by your region, of course. And what I found when in the Wisconsin job market back when I was doing consulting is that it was, I'm going to say, pretty good. And what it was, though, is that I was independent, and I always had to, I guess, make a name for myself. So kind of, it's essentially selling. So I didn't work for a company that did Xamarin development. Rather, I found companies that did Xamarin development. So I never was hurting to find a job for Xamarin. Xamarin was always out there. And so since then, and that was a couple of years ago when Xamarin, I guess, was first getting started. Since then, I've only seen it kind of tick up. Now, how to learn it and how to get more of a job. So this kind of gets into personal branding, and I'm going to kind of go off on a tangent here. So how to learn it, we have a ton of docs.microsoft.com/learn. And I saw something just come through here. Are there going to be any more Learn and/or Pluralsight courses? Maybe. I think there are some new Pluralsight courses coming out for Xamarin. I think there may or may not be Learn courses. I'll talk to our Adam, who's doing Learn. However, to get your name out there more, to start blogging about it, we have the mobile.net community stand-up, which David and Maddie are great at featuring everybody out there who writes about Xamarin. We have the Xamarin weekly newsletter that's community driven. And so it's just start writing about it, and eventually you will, 1, learn more, and 2, you'll get your name out there, and 3, profit. So David, I know you ran a little bit larger of a company than I did, so I'd be interested to hear what you think.
Yeah, I think at our largest we had maybe 10 to 12 of us, and we were doing primarily mobile, and that's certainly where our hearts were. And so we were trying to do as much mobile as possible, but we also had a mix of web in there as well. When you're small and you're hungry, you're gonna take whatever's paying. But there was certainly a period of time where we were successfully able to build an entire business off of just doing Xamarin. It started out as MonoTouch, and then shortly thereafter became Xamarin as its own standalone entity. So I will say, from my position as a program manager and kind of leading the products, sort of, I do get to talk to a lot of companies, from enterprises to smaller shops. We're in an unprecedented situation right now with the way that the economy is needing to kind of think of new ways in which to adapt and to succeed and to stay alive, financially. So my experience in talking to customers has been, there are those in some areas and markets that are like, we can't find enough Xamarin developers. And then I know of others in other markets that are like, nobody wants to hire a Xamarin developer. And it's baffling to me, right? Because you would think that the value propositions would land and resonate no matter where you are. Business is business, technology is technology, but that's just not necessarily the case. So I will say overall for the product, we are hitting higher developer numbers than we ever have. We're setting records nearly every month this year alone. Our customer satisfaction numbers are higher than they ever have been. And we're certainly not resting on the laurels there. You know, we want to make sure that we continue to listen closely to what delights developers and delights companies to find out what makes it. In most of my surveys for the past couple of years, I think I've asked the question, are you a decision maker? What's your role? Because we want to understand how decision makers on projects at companies think about this. But I will say that, you know, I kind of mentioned this, I think, at the top when we were talking about why do this transition to .NET MAUI. And I fought hard, and I think I wrote blog posts about, you know, how do you sell Xamarin into a company or to a client? Sometimes it was trying to get a company to adopt Xamarin as the technology, and other times it was just trying to get them to recognize it was a real product and that they could actually deliver something on it. And so the difference is now we can go in and say, hey, Microsoft.NET, and those terms, those brands, are much heavier and they carry a ton more weight. And so as you're thinking about jobs and, you know, being able to reuse your skills, et cetera, the hireability, the job market aspect of all of this is definitely in our minds. As a matter of fact, Maddie probably remembers this, that when we were first prototyping names for what we might name this whole thing, I actually did that. I did a job recruiter script that was basically playing the hilarious yet annoying job recruiter who's like, hey, you know, I haven't talked to you in a while. We got a job opportunity. Well, what are they looking for? Well, they're looking for a .NET multi-platform app UI. Used to be this thing called Xamarin. I don't know what that is, but you know, just that kind of thing, right? Like, so that's in our minds, and certainly open to any feedback as always on how we can help you to be marketable, but also how we can adapt, you know, how we talk about the products and how we talk about the .NET platform to make sure that it's resonating. We do feel like we have a modern platform. We feel like MAUI, especially with some of the new cool things that we showed today and some of the technology that Maddie demoed with Scott Hanselman, really sets it apart. We're doing some stuff nobody else is doing. I mean, the fact that you can plug an iPhone directly into a Windows machine and you're off and running is bananas. And then, you know, to untangle that from everything else that happened in just that small demo sequence, like I saw a couple of tweets from people that I know out there in the community who were like, there were so many crazy technologies jam-packed into that like 1 minute demo that when you tease it apart, you're like, this is mind-blowing. So I don't even remember what the question was, but I'm just so excited.
I love it. It was a beautiful answer. So as we're coming up on the top of the hour, I know folks have prior commitments. So
Yeah.
one more question, and Dave, we'll throw it to you. What's the best place to follow feedback, both Xamarin Forms and MAUI? And so how can we give our suggestions? How can we stay up to date on the roadmaps? Where do we go to view that? And how do we subscribe?
GitHub. So github.com/.net/MAUI will get you to the new repository. You'll recognize the code probably if you've ever seen a Xamarin Forms repository, because it is literally that. We brought over a copy of Xamarin Forms, we changed the namespaces, and that's kind of the first brick in the wall, right? That we're going to be building a whole new thing. And then of course, Xamarin/Xamarin.forms on GitHub. Make sure you make sure you watch those repos. Both of them in the wikis have the roadmap. The new .NET MAUI repository has an FAQ as well as the status that I think I showed earlier. So those are great places. In terms of providing the feedback, you can always email me directly, david.ortnow@microsoft.com. It shouldn't be hard to find. I post my email address everywhere. I welcome your emails. I will do my best to reply in a timely manner. If it's a product related issue, open an issue. If it's a product related enhancement proposal, open a proposal. You know, hopefully more than just, oh, I wish it could do this, but you know, kind of, you know, think through some things. But those are all great avenues, and you can of course ping us, any of us on this call. You can ping us on Twitter, social media, and we'll try to help route you know, your interests to the appropriate people, because it's a big product. I don't represent and do everything. Maddie doesn't do everything, although she's more than capable of doing everything. But yeah, there you go. Oh, there's slides. Somebody's showing slides. I should go to a different screen. There you go.
All right. So thanks so much, everybody, for joining us today. We'll leave this slide up just so everybody can grab this link. I'll be taking gathering everybody's feedback, trying to answer some questions that maybe we didn't get around to yet. But thank you so much for joining us today. Stay tuned for our roadmap. Stay tuned on GitHub, and we'll see you around.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. See you.